All right, so this lesson, 8.6, is also in Unit 8. We're again talking about proportionality for the last time, but this time we're talking about equations. So 8.6, proportionality with equations, is a two-part homework, or 2 pages, but I think you'll see that it's going to go by rather quickly. If you can please open your packet to the notes page. The notes page is this one right here, and it is proportional equations that we're talking about. By definition, an equation that is proportional is in the form y equals mx. Basically, that means I can only have a number times x. If I have anything else, then it will not be proportional. So only multiplication. Facts and characteristics are that it has to have an equation with only multiplication. It's as simple as that. You'll have to find out from a table or from a graph if that equation will work, but it can only have y equals some number times x. And we're going to call that m because that's the slope. Sometimes in other books, it's also called k. So you might have y equals kx. But either way, it's going to be some number times x. So I'm going to leave it as m because that's what you'll see it in algebra next year. If there's anything here, if it's anything but 0, then it is not proportional. So it can only be a plus 0. All right, for example, y equals negative 5x. Or y equals, it's really any number times x. So you get to pick. Non-examples would be y equals 15x plus 4. Because of this plus 4, that means it doesn't go through the origin and it's not proportional. Otherwise, it could have y equals 15x minus 12. Any number being added or subtracted is not proportional. Or it could even be an x squared or a crazy x cubed equation. So those are non-examples. If we look ahead to the homework, we'll get an idea of how this is going to play out when you're practicing. So please go ahead and go to 8.6, the page in your packet. Looks like this. And we are writing equations from a ratio table. We're also writing equations given a situation. And then on the back side, we're even going to be looking at a graph and then writing an equation. So let's go back to this page. If we start this, remember we have already learned how to make a ratio table. We just take the y value and divide it by the x. And we're only doing the y and the x because we're checking to see if it's proportional. So it says Shayna's favorite candy store sells candy for $2 per pound. And you might already see that if it's $2 per pound, that's a dead giveaway that our equation is just going to be y equals 2 times x. There's no addition on this, and then you should tell that it is proportional. So you'll find later in the directions that you're going to star the ones that are proportional, and all of these top ones are proportional. Later we're going to decide, is it proportional or not. So do you see that all of these, and you don't have to write every single one, but I at least want you to get the idea that every single one of these is, oops, if you write them correctly, every single one of these is equal to 2. And that's where this 2 comes from, because the rate, or the slope, is 2. There is nothing added or subtracted. This one, Steve drives 65 miles per hour. Again, you might be thinking, oh, I already know the equation. Great, but make sure you also can check it with your table. I do y over x, y over x. So I can see right now that all of these are going to be equal to 65 if I divide them and find the unit rate. That unit rate is also called the slope, or the constant of proportionality. These are proportional because the rate is constant. Get used to hearing those words. So y equals 65x should be what you have figured out. This one is a little less obvious. In a class of 20 students, there were 8 boys. So if you see, that information is right here, 8 to 20. And you can think of it as a fraction. We put the 20 on the bottom because usually you see the total on the bottom. But when we write the slope, remember we write that on the top. We're thinking of like a slope on a graph, and the rise is always over the run. So if I look at this, do these all equal each other? Well, if I simplify them, yes, they all equal 5 over 2. And you can double check my work. So that means that's our slope. That's what's going to go right here in our equation. And our equation should always look like y equals something times x, and that something is the rate. Okay, let's look down here. You can do number 4 yourself. Define your variables. X is your input, y is your output. You're going to be given situations where you have to figure out your own x and your own y. Please remember that the output is always dependent on the input. So y, up and down, right? Y depends on x. You have to ask yourself, which one is the y and which one's the x in each situation? Let's read number 5. As long as he did his chores, Jaden earned $20 each week for allowance. So we have to think of, okay, I've got a variable here, weeks, and we're talking about money. So those are my 2 variables. I have to figure out which is which though, which is the output and which is the input. Well, if you think through it, do the dollars depend on the weeks, or do the weeks depend on the dollars? And now, I don't know about you, but my time doesn't depend on how much I make. So time should almost always be the x value. The dollars depends on the time. So therefore, input is going to be the weeks, that time, number of weeks, and the output, the y, is going to be the dollars earned. So you're basically just writing what do the variables mean. What does x mean? What does y mean in this situation? And you'll notice up in these problems, we decided for you. But now you have to make a decision on which is which. And then write your equation. Y equals, look at the number, 20 each. So 20x should be what it is. Please go ahead and go through and use the same directions on the other side. Notice it says put a star next to the ones that represent proportional. Is 20x proportional? Yes. So I'm going to put a star next to it. If I look at the next one, $15 per day plus an additional fee. What does that automatically, what do you think of in your head? Additional, in my head, I think of add. If there's adding, is this proportional? No. You should be telling yourself no, not proportional. And the reason is because that additional fee. So again, you have to figure out what's the x, what's the y. Y depends on x. I can help you with this again tomorrow if you need it. I'm seeing dollars and I'm seeing days in the problem. So I have to figure out which one's which. Well, does dollars depend on days or do days depend on dollars? Days, I would say, never depend on anything. So they need to go in the x value. Days, the number of days. That's going to keep going and not be affected. But the dollars is affected by how many days we're talking about. And now my equation, y equals, I've got to use the numbers, 15 per day. That tells you multiply. So 15 times x. And it even says plus 20. And do you see now why this is not proportional? I hope so. All right, complete this assignment and you will be successful.
Have a great day.